Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I found it very hard to disagree with anything that Ms Haddad said just then about the corrections system in Tasmania, and I want to follow that on with some comments on the youth justice system in Tasmania, following on from the really scandalous tabling of a redacted report in the last sitting. And I just thought, given Minister Jentzsch's confusion about lines of accountability, I just thought that he might want a handy flowchart, Madam Speaker, on the Westminster system. And it's very clear.
I think that's a prop, Ms O'Connor.
Is that a prop? Okay, well, I'll just lay down my handy flowchart on the lectern so it's not regarded as a prop, and thank you for your guidance, Madam Speaker. But this handy flowchart makes it very clear that in the Westminster system, Parliament, of course, is supreme, Madam Speaker, and of course Parliament represents the people who pay us to be here. Now, in terms of accountability, when you've got a department that's working literally underneath a minister's authority, that department answers up to the minister, and the minister then comes in and he answers to Parliament if he's an honest and open minister who hasn't tabled a report in Parliament that is full of redactions which have yet to be explained. The buck stops, Madam Speaker, always in the Westminster system with the minister. Yet Minister Jentzsch, on the day he tabled the Inspection of Youth Custodial Services in Tasmania 2018 Youth Custodial Report, was asked by journalists why the report was so heavily redacted, and the minister said he didn't know anything about it. So there's a couple of things here, Madam Speaker, which are very, very concerning. The first is that as a minister, when a report or documents are put on the table, on your table in this place for you to table in Parliament, you want to have a look at them, Madam Speaker. You want to have a look because you are taking responsibility for that document when you table it as the minister. And yet Minister Jentzsch did not take responsibility. He either didn't look at the document, so he didn't know that it was full of huge black chunks, Madam Speaker. He didn't look at the document, and I think that's what happens. So that's incompetence, Madam Speaker, rather than being deceitful. But then there was an opportunity for the minister to go, I've made a mistake. Now, this is something my mum told me to do, Madam Speaker. If you make a mistake, if you cock up, you fess up straight away, Madam Speaker, because the truth will always out. That's the thing about the truth. It always outs. Yet we still haven't had the truth from Minister Jentzsch on the redactions in the Ashley Custodial Inspector's report. But the buck does stop with him, Madam Speaker. And when we asked the questions in Parliament this morning, we had a truly Scott Morrison performance from Minister Jentzsch. And I'm sorry that I caused such disruption at one level, Madam Speaker, but it was really important that we got an answer. What happened to that independent custodial inspector's report? And so I kept getting up and saying, point of order. The question was really direct, Madam Speaker. Who redacted that report and why? And could he confirm that the direction or the request or the strongly, perhaps unexpressed desire of his office to the custodial inspector is that the most damning parts of the report be redacted? So maybe, maybe there wasn't a direction from the minister's office, but the custodial inspector and the department sure knew what the minister's office wanted. So we asked, clear question, and then I said, point of order. You need to answer the question, basically. Did your office direct the redactions? Madam Speaker, I've given my answer to that question. Whoa! Deja vu, all over again, sounds exactly like Scott Morrison when he's repeatedly lying about the fact that he asked disgraced pastor Brian Hewson, he asked the White House if the disgraced pastor could attend the White House with him from the Hillsong group. So I've given my answer on that question. Then a bit later, when he waffles on a bit more and starts self-congratulating for no good reason, I said, come on, point of order, Madam Speaker. You told me it's not a point of order, but it was. Please continue. And Mr Jentzsch goes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaker, I had answered that question. No, that's not the way it works in here. Madam Speaker, when a question is asked, it is on you as Minister to come in here and answer it clear and straight and true on behalf of the people who paid us to be here. If you make a mistake, accept responsibility for the mistake and tell the Parliament and therefore the people of Tasmania what you will do to make sure that mistake doesn't happen again, to make sure that there are processes in place, Madam Speaker, so that ministers know that they are responsible for information that they bring into this place and place on the table. But I am still concerned, Madam Speaker, about the legality of the redactions of the Independent Custodial Inspector's report. It is an offence without good reason to interfere with the work of the Independent Custodial Inspector under the Act that established that statutory position. And that is part of the reason we have continued to badger the Minister about this report. We still don't have an answer, even having asked the question today again in Parliament. Madam Speaker, the question is, why was the Independent Custodial Inspector's report into the Ashley Youth Detention Centre redacted? Who directed or asked for that redaction to happen? What was the role of the Minister? And that means what was the role of his office, because remember we're in the Westminster system, in making sure that the report that was tabled in this place hid the worst aspects of the failures of the Ashley Youth Detention Centre to properly respond to young people who are in its care for a whole range of reasons. Now, what we know, Madam Speaker, is that there are massive problems at the Ashley Youth Detention Centre. It is a failed model for dealing with juvenile offenders. It fails to deliver a therapeutic approach. And really, I've said this before, I'll say it one more time before I'm wound up, Madam Speaker. This government has a problem with the proposed prison at Westbury. Westbury is not a good place for a prison, Madam Speaker, and the local community's made that really clear. So why isn't this government having a look at closing down the Ashley Youth Detention Centre, establishing the Northern Prison, if it must have one, at Ashley in Deloraine?
Okay, I'm going to